The place was way out in the countryside, miles from the nearest town, surrounded by nothing but fields and woods that seemed to swallow the light. I'd known Jake from high school. He was that rich kid who always had cash and connections. Lately, he'd been texting about good deals on weed, saying he had a hookup on his family's property. Sounded easy enough. Buy a couple ounces, head home. My buddy Ryan came along, figuring we'd split the cost and smoke later. Jake waved from the porch of the big barn-like house, his smile wide under that messy hair. He looked the same as always, tall and broad, wearing a faded t-shirt and jeans covered in dirt. "Alex, Ryan, get in here," he called, his voice carrying across the yard. We parked and hopped out, grabbing our backpacks. The air smelled like hay and engine oil, and the farm equipment loomed in the shadows. Tractors, a backhoe, piles of tires stacked like forgotten toys. We followed him inside the house, which was more like a workshop than a home, with tools scattered on tables and empty bottles on the counter. His cousin Ben was there, lounging on a couch with a beer, nodding at us. Ben was quieter, skinny with sharp eyes, the kind that watched everything without saying much. "You guys want a drink first?" Jake asked, cracking open sodas from the fridge. We said sure, settling at the kitchen table. Ryan pulled out the cash, counting bills, while Jake talked about how his folks owned all this land, how he ran the place now that they were away. The conversation started normal. Jake bragged about fixing up an old ATV out back, showed us pictures on his phone of him riding it through the fields. Ryan laughed, asking if we could take a spin later. Ben just smirked, sipping his drink slowly. But then Jake's tone shifted a bit. He leaned in, lowering his voice like he was sharing a secret. "You know, this farm's got spots nobody knows about, buried treasures and all that." We chuckled, thinking he meant junk from years ago. He went on about how he'd dug up old stuff once, bones from animals or something, and how it made him feel powerful, like he controlled everything out here. I glanced at Ryan, who raised an eyebrow but kept smiling. Jake pulled out a baggie from a drawer, decent green, smelled strong. "This is top stuff," he said, weighing it on a scale. We haggled a little on price, Ryan pushing for a discount since it was just us. Ben stood up then, pacing to the window, looking out at the darkening yard. "Hurry it up," he muttered to Jake. Jake shot him a look, then turned back to us with that grin again. "No rush, we're good here." That's when I noticed the gun. It was on the counter, half hidden under a rag, a shiny revolver that caught the kitchen light. My stomach tightened, but I told myself it was for protection. Farms had coyotes or whatever. Jake saw me looking and laughed. "Don't worry about that, just in case." He slid the baggie over, taking the money. Ryan pocketed it, standing to leave. "Cool, man. Thanks, we'll hit you up next time." But Jake didn't move. He blocked the door a little, his body filling the frame. "You sure that's all? I got more if you want." Ryan shook his head, polite but firm. "Nah, we're set." Ben stepped closer now, his hands in his pockets, eyes locked on Ryan. The room felt smaller, the air thicker. Jake's smile faded just a touch. "Come on, stay a minute. I want to show you the backfield. Got a fire pit going." I didn't like it. Something in his voice, the way Ben hovered. It wasn't right. "Maybe next time," I said, edging toward the door. Ryan nodded, following me. Jake put a hand on Ryan's shoulder, squeezing. "Relax, dude. We're friends." Ryan shrugged it off, but Jake's grip tightened. "What's your problem?" Ryan asked, voice steady but annoyed. In a blink, Jake shoved Ryan hard against the wall. The soda cans rattled off the table. "You think you can just take my stuff and go?" Jake snarled, his face twisting. Ben lunged, grabbing Ryan's arms from behind. I froze for a split second, then yelled, "What the hell? Let him go!" Jake turned to me, eyes wild, pulling the gun from the counter. "Shut up, Alex. You saw too much." Ryan struggled, kicking at Ben. "Get off me," he shouted. The gun went off, bang, deafening in the small space. Ryan jerked, blood blooming on his shirt. He gasped, sliding down the wall. I backed up, heart racing, hands up. "Jake, stop! We're leaving." But he aimed at me next, finger on the trigger. Ben was on the floor now, wrestling Ryan, who was wheezing, trying to crawl away. I didn't think, I just ran. Shoved past Jake, burst through the door into the yard. Footsteps pounded behind me. "Alex, get back here!" Jake bellowed. I sprinted for my truck, keys fumbling in my pocket. Another shot cracked the air, whizzing past my ear. I dove into the cab, slamming the door, engine roaring to life. Tires spun on gravel as I peeled out, glancing in the mirror. Jake stood there, gun raised, Ben dragging something. Ryan, back inside. I drove like mad, hands shaking on the wheel, not stopping until I hit the highway. Called the cops from a gas station, words tumbling out. They found Ryan's body later that night, shot twice, dragged to the barn. Jake and Ben confessed days after, talking about how it started over the money but spiraled. They'd done it before, luring guys out here for deals that turned deadly. Buried the others in shallow graves behind the fields, using the backhoe to cover their tracks. The farm was their trap, isolated enough that screams didn't carry. I still drive by that road sometimes, can't help it. The gate's chained now, house empty. But at night I hear that bang in my dreams, see Ryan's face. Out there alone, nobody hears you. I took the job at the old farm because it paid steady, and I needed work after losing my spot in town. The place sat way out in the country, miles from any neighbors, just fields and woods closing in around it. The owner, Mr. Gruber, was a sturdy man in his 60s with a face like weathered wood. He shook my hand firm when I showed up and said, "You'll sleep in the loft above the barn. Earn your keep with the chores." His wife nodded from the doorway, her eyes sharp but quiet. Their daughter, Victoria, lived there too with her 2 kids, a girl about 7 and a little boy just learning to walk. The family kept to themselves, but they seemed solid enough. My first week went smooth. I fixed fences, hauled hay, and milked the cows before dawn. The attic above the main house creaked sometimes at night, but I figured it was the wind or mice. One evening, as I shoveled out the stalls, Victoria came by with a basket of bread. "You settling in?" she asked, her voice soft. I wiped my hands and took a piece. "Yes, ma'am. Quiet out here." She smiled a bit. "Too quiet sometimes. Father found footprints last winter, leading right to the back door. Thought it was a tramp, but nothing missing." I nodded, not thinking much of it. Farms get wanderers now and then. A few days later, Mr. Gruber called me over while I was mending the roof. He held up a newspaper, crumpled and old. "Look at this," he said, his brow furrowed. "From the city, Munich. None of us get that here. Found it under the porch steps." I took it, scanning the headlines about city folk and politics. "Strange," I replied. "Maybe the wind blew it from the road." He shook his head. "Road's too far. And the lock on the machine shed, it's busted now. Someone's been poking around." His wife overheard from the kitchen window and added, "We heard steps in the attic last night, like boots on the boards." I felt a prickle on my neck, but kept my face steady. "I'll check the doors tonight, make sure they're latched." That night, after everyone turned in, I grabbed a lantern and climbed to the attic in the main house. The air up there was thick with dust, and the beams swung shadows across old trunks and tools. Nothing moved. I called out, "Anyone there?" My voice echoed back empty. Just as I turned to go, a soft thump came from the far corner, like something shifting. I held the light high, but saw only cobwebs. Heart racing a little, I hurried down and bolted the hatch. Back in the barn loft, I lay awake, listening to the house settle. No more sounds, but sleep didn't come easy. The next morning, Mr. Gruber seemed on edge. Over breakfast in the kitchen, porridge and cheese, he said to me, "Keep an eye out today. That newspaper bothers me, and the footprints. I'll show you." After eating, he led me to the edge of the property, where snow from a recent flurry still clung to the ground. Sure enough, boot prints trailed from the woods straight to the machine room door. Fresh ones, deeper than mine. "See that?" he muttered. "Not ours. Someone's watching the place." Victoria joined us, holding her son's hand. The boy babbled and pointed at the tracks. "Like a game," she said, but her laugh was forced. "Maybe it's just the neighbor kids." Mr. Gruber grunted. "Kids don't break locks." I spent the day patrolling the fences, rifle slung over my shoulder, just in case. The woods felt thicker, like eyes peered from the trees. Around noon, the little girl ran up while I was splitting wood. "Uncle," she called me that already, "come see the attic. Mama says there's a secret up there." I set down the axe. "What kind of secret?" She tugged my hand. "Noises, like whispering." Her mother called from the house, "Cecilia, leave him be." But I followed her inside anyway, curiosity pulling me. Up in the attic again, the girl pointed to a loose board. I pried it up, finding only dirt and a rusted nail. No whispers, but as we descended, a faint scrape echoed from above, like nails on wood. I glanced back, but the ladder was still. That evening, the new maid arrived. Her name was Maria, a woman in her 40s with a tired smile. Mr. Gruber introduced us at the door. "She starts tonight," he said. Maria nodded. "Glad to be here. Heard the farm needs help." We all sat for supper, stew from the pot, bread fresh baked. Talk was light at first, about the cows and the coming spring. But then Mrs. Gruber leaned in. "You know about the attic?" she asked Maria. The maid paused. "The old one quit over it, they say." Mr. Gruber waved it off. "Nonsense. Just old house settling." But Victoria looked at me across the table. "You heard it too, didn't you?" I admitted. "Something up there, yes, but probably rats." Maria shivered slightly. "I'll stay in the downstairs room, thank you." Sleep evaded me again that night. Around midnight, a low moan carried from the house, like wind through a crack, but steadier. I sat up in the loft, straining to hear. Then footsteps, slow, deliberate, crossing the attic floor. Thump, thump. Not rats. I slipped on my boots and grabbed the lantern, heart thumping hard. Creeping to the barn door, I peered toward the house. A figure? No, just the outline of the chimney. But the steps continued, fading then returning. I thought of waking Mr. Gruber, but what if it was nothing? What if I looked foolish? By morning, tension hung thick. Mr. Gruber gathered us in the yard. "We're not imagining this," he said, voice low. "Someone's been in the attic. I found straw from up there on the floor below." Maria wrung her hands. "Should we call the sheriff?" He shook his head. "Too far out. Takes a day to get here. We'll handle it." Victoria hugged her kids close. "What if they come down?" The little boy whimpered, and she shushed him. I spoke up. "Let me sleep in the house tonight. Guard the stairs." Mr. Gruber agreed. "Good. Rifle ready." As dusk fell, I moved my things inside, bedding down near the attic hatch with the gun across my lap. The family retired early, lights out one by one. Hours passed in quiet, the clock ticking on the wall. Then it started, a soft rustle from above, like clothing brushing floorboards. I gripped the rifle, whispering to myself to stay calm. The rustle grew to pacing, back and forth, closer to the hatch, a creak as if weight shifted on the ladder. I raised the barrel, finger on the trigger. "Who's there?" I called, voice barely above a breath. Silence answered. Then a knock. 3 slow raps on the wood from above. My blood ran cold. Not wind, not rats. Someone was up there playing with us. I fired a warning shot into the ceiling, the bang echoing through the house. Shouts came from the rooms, Mr. Gruber yelling, "What is it?" Victoria crying out for the kids. I yelled back, "In the attic, get out!" Chaos followed. Doors banged open, feet pounded down the hall. I kicked the hatch wide, lantern high, but the attic gaped empty, dust swirling. No one. We all huddled in the kitchen, lanterns flickering. Mr. Gruber clutched his own gun. "You saw nothing?" I shook my head, heard knocking, like he wanted me to know. Maria sobbed quietly. "I can't stay. This place is cursed. No, wait, not cursed, just wrong." Victoria comforted her son. "We leave at dawn. Pack now." But Mr. Gruber stood firm. "No. This is our home. We'll board the attic and wait for light." I couldn't shake the feeling that eyes watched from every dark corner. As the night dragged, whispers seemed to drift from the walls, not words but breaths. Close. Too close. When the first gray light crept in, I bolted for the door. "I'm going for help," I told them. Mr. Gruber nodded grimly. "Hurry." I ran down the path, not looking back, the farm shrinking behind me. Miles later, I reached the nearest town and fetched the law. But by the time we returned, it was too late. The family, gone. Bodies in the barn stacked like cordwood, struck down with the mattock from the loft. The killer had waited, fed the animals, even lit the fire, and the attic, empty, but for a single boot print in the dust. I still wake to those footsteps sometimes, wondering if he ever left.